Well, Paul, for Jesper, 2 points, 8 hits. Just what was it like kind of seeing him rise to this big moment, getting back in the lineup like that?
It's kind of a guy that scored big goals for us this year. I think he ended up with 12, but they weren't the last goal in a run. So those are the fun stories for our room when Greer gets one, Gadjevit has one with those guys, because they work hard and they don't get on the magazines, right? They're not the front of it, but it's special on the bench when those guys score.
Paul, you guys were buzzing early. How important was getting that first goal in the net to sort of open things up there?
It felt important because that game was really fast and well executed by both teams, up and down the ice early. There's lots of really good execution in that for both teams. So getting the first one was important. I thought it flatlined a little bit after that for us. And then probably where the game doesn't break is Sergei Bobrovsky, right? He's 2 or 3 breakaways a night. So I think he was the pivot point in the way that game went.
Paul, it was interesting this morning you referenced the series against the Rangers a year ago and a pivotal Game 5 and a big stage and a big building. And I don't know if you were trying to have a premonition for tonight, but again, what is it about your team at critical junctures of series the last 3 years that seems so comfortable on the stage?
Well, that game was completely different than this one. We got down in that game. It was reasonably well played. And then Gustav Forsling tied it to make it 1-1. It was late in the third, well, halfway through the third, and Anton Lundell. The message today wasn't, what it was that goal was a simple goal. We had a middle lane drive and Lundy shot the puck and there was nothing fancy to it, and that was the idea of as simple as we can possibly play here tonight. That silly cliche, more is less, was what we were trying to do. This one felt different. Like the first 6-7 minutes of that game, both teams were very well prepared and came out jumping. And then, you get a couple breaks, Sergei makes a couple of saves, so you get to keep the positive vibe. You get into the second period, you get a second goal's a break, right? Just off a stick, and that's kind of how it turned for us.
Paul, you mentioned Sergei a couple of times, and it seems like he's kind of ramping his game up as the series has gone on. But how much would you say is it Bob kind of getting into a groove, and how much is it of how well the defense is playing in front of him, cleaning up second chance opportunities and keeping stuff to the outside as best they can?
I think Sergei is always available to get into a groove. I think his prep doesn't change, right? The scorer, he has no idea about his stats. It's not how he... But I think recently, and it was true in the latter half of the Tampa series, the guys in front are playing a game he understands, that he has history with this year. He's had stretches this year where the shot total wasn't big for him. He never got warmed up in the game. He didn't get a bunch of outside angle shots that let him feel good about his game as a breakaway. Not a ton of them, so he's kind of trained himself with the style of game that we play, the breakaways, which is a silly thing to say. He has a fairly consistent expectation of what's going to happen next. I don't know if it makes saving the puck any easier for him. His anticipation then becomes very good.
Paul, there's a point in almost every playoff series where the two teams separate, and you realize one's going to win, obviously one's not going to win. Was tonight the point where the two teams separated, and now you're in a position to take this thing?
That's a beauty, Steve. I worked here. I've worked here, eh? This is very brief, but I've seen this. So I'll be consistent with what I am absolutely not a believer in momentum. So if we took that concept of what you said and applied it and felt it was true in our room, you would put yourself in a very, very difficult position if you lose the next game. So I would say we leave the game here. We're going to have a certain kind of day tomorrow that we've had a bunch of times. It won't be a happier day or a better day than other days on our travel days. It's going to be exactly our... And we will expect the first 6 minutes of the game tonight or the first 10 of game 1, 2, and 3 to look exactly the same. The Toronto Maple Leafs were at least as good as us in those games, and that's where it is. I do not believe in momentum.
Two more questions. Alex?
Paul, with the goals today, I think you have 17 different players that have scored for your team in this postseason. Your fourth line was the fifth line to start the postseason. Your seventh defenseman scored in this series. Obviously, you won the Cup last year, but do you think this is the deepest team you've ever had?
I would say it's. So I was going to say to you, I think it's the culturally deepest team that we've had. But we had some good dudes there 2 years ago. You think of the Stahl brothers. I know we gave up 9 goals in Game 5 of the Vegas series. Oh man, we had some guys in that line. We were so beat up. The culture is good on the players that are in and out of our lineup. They feel a part of it. Coach has nothing to do with that. Coaching has nothing to do with it. It's the room and the guys. So if you're 13, 14, and 15 up front, you don't feel it in that room. When you get your call and you go in, Evan Rodriguez was playing exceptionally well for us, and you feel a part of it when you come to the room because you have all the way straight through. So that's all the guys in the room. You said 2 more. I think there's 2. Right? Oh.
One more. Last one. Hey, Paul.
And then he gave it to Kent. Like,
Last one.
That's the worst. Hey, Paul. What does winning last year and acquiring that champion mindset, how much does that have to do with what we've seen basically since the midpoint of Game 3 in this series?
so I would say maybe the most important part of that is we got beat 8-1 in Game 4. How does that happen? You're going to win the Cup. You don't know that yet, but you're a pretty good team at that point. You're in your second final. You get beat 8-1. That tells you everything you need to know. This thing is so much closer than the buzzer sounds. You write a story. I'm not saying you, but even in coaches' heads, right? If the final result tells you how the game was played, it's just not true. All of it is always closer than you think. Every play, every shift. And that's how you got to come to the rink every night.